we asked Nancy Snipper, a children's book author and collector, to give us a sampling of books written in Quebec about Quebecers, and she's here in studio. Hi, Nancy. Let's start with books for very small children.
Well, for little kiddies, I would choose a book where there's a theme, there's an event, or there's an activity, or there's even an emotion, and the writer takes this particular subject and puts it in a variety of contexts. He either makes it funny, he makes it sad, he makes it scary, and that's called the theme book. Now, for the older child, the children over 5, they're looking for a really exciting story. That's a narrative.
Okay, a narrative. Have you got a good example, or a couple of good examples for us?
For sure. 2 that I really recommend are Lumberjack by Jack Kerouac, who's a very famous author and writer from the West, particularly a painter. His paintings have been shown all across the world, so the children love his drawings that are in the book. It is interesting because it's different. The kids that I read this book to found it stimulating. They said they had never heard about this before, how tough life could be out in a lumber camp. And in fact, this is an authentic and interesting account that Jack Kerouac actually went through himself.
Okay, another one?
Another one is Guy Berly's Welcome to Our Town, and this is about the life and people of Cap de la Madeleine. It's full of colorful pictures. The text is somewhat dry. This was the comment that the kids said when they read it.
Yeah, this is the one I'm looking at right now. You write magnificent color in all the photographs, or the pictures, rather. I guess for a youngster who wouldn't care about the text, it'd be great just as a picture book.
That's exactly what happens. They just they gravitate towards the pictures and they forget all about the text.
Hockey is very important to all Quebec youngsters. Have you got any books to recommend with a hockey theme?
Do I have any books to recommend? I have one in particular that I can recommend, The Hockey Sweater. Now, that's written by Roch Carrier, and it's illustrated with wonderfully humorous drawings by Sheldon Rosen. Adults find this book very, very funny because of the plot, but the kids found it very distressing. What happens is this little boy happens to wear a Toronto Maple Leaf sweater instead of the revered Montreal Canadiens sweater, and he has to wear this to his hockey practice, and he is shamed. He's shamed off the ice, and he has to go to church and pray for forgiveness for his behavior.
I bet and the kids, does. The Maple Leafs?
And it's so you can see why the adults find it quite funny, but the kids really felt sorry for this kid. But they enjoyed the topic, definitely. And they also commented that the pictures were a lot of fun. In fact, they were a little bit too funny for the serious situation at hand.
Okay, that's Roch Carrier's The Hockey Sweater. Pictures are very important, are they?
Yes, they are. First of all, we're talking about kids that grow up on TV, so they rely as much on the visual as they do on language. So if the text is weak, or let's say almost non-existent, as in the case of Welcome to Our Town, the kids will immediately look to the picture to get the image. So a picture shouldn't overshadow a text, and the text should not overshadow the picture. They really need each other. They should be in balance. In fact, there are some books, however, that really have beautifully merged the text with the pictures. Parents should really take a look at any Indian legend illustrated by the late Elizabeth Cleaver, who was from Westmount, and William Toy, who's from Toronto. And they have beautifully formed a duo to recreate and retell the Indian legends from Canada. She uses a particular collage technique where she actually uses authentic materials to illustrate the story at hand. And children particularly love legends because they're humorous, they're elusive, they're mysterious, and they're about nature and animals, and this very much appeals to children as well.
Now, I understand you have something by Marie-Louise Gay. She's a particular favorite of my daughter.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
She's also a favorite of mine. She is beautiful. Her drawings are exquisite. This one book in particular that I found exceptional is Moonbeam on a Cat's Ear. It's a poem book, and the pictures seem to just spill over onto the pages, and the rhythm and the rhyme of the words seem to almost run right into the pictures. It's an enchanting little poem, and I even enjoy reading it to myself.
Okay.
She's really quite fabulous.
That's Moonbeam on a Cat's Ear by Marie-Louise Gay.
Yeah.
Kids love animal stories and animal themes. Have you got any of those to recommend?
Oh, there's so many. The market is saturated right here in Quebec with Quebec writers and illustrators. Catlands. Catlands is one that immediately comes to mind. This is a beautiful book, and it's illustrated by...
you don't know who it's illustrated by.
I was just talking about it to my friend. That's like Felix Vincent, and he is a naive artist. I must say that the illustrations in this book are outstanding, but the text is as well. Another book is Winter Magic, illustrated by Michel Lemieux, right here from Montreal. And both these books, Catlands and Winter Magic, are journey books in which cats escort a child through a wonderful, superb land of magic and mystery.
Okay, and this one's bilingual. Catlands is bilingual. Yes. It's also called Pays des Chats. I'm getting the feeling that anything that involves animals is automatic approval from kids of all ages, right?
I think partially because some of the books that are out tend to be preachy when there's an adult character involved. Kids really don't want to be preached to. There are some adult books that are just right up there with the animal books, and one of them is a book called Tales of the Gambling Grandma.
Sounds interesting.
That's actually written locally here by Dale Calcolsa. She's written a few very, very little baby books, little square books with pictures on them. This one's quite different. She's really gone right up to the older child here. And in this book, you really can't help but love the grandmother because she is like a child. She is lovable, she's fun, she gambles, she tells little fibs here and there, and she shares her thoughts very deeply with somebody much younger than herself, which happens to be a grandchild. The pictures she has also done, they're beautiful, beautiful, colorful pictures with detailed drawings and lots of focus in them. They're easy to appreciate and easy to understand what's going on. A lot of picture books aren't like that, so I recommend that one.
Thanks a lot for joining us today, Nancy.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
I've been talking to Nancy Snipper on Homerun here on CBC 940 in Montreal. House of Seasons is a series of 4 unique little books. They are poetry books for preschoolers depicting our different seasons, and they are shaped like a spring butterfly, an evergreen tree, an oak leaf, and a snowflake. These books are the creation of Nancy Snipper, who is an actress and a teacher, and Nancy is with us in studio this afternoon. Hi, welcome to the program with the butterflies and the oak leaf. Is it an oak leaf or a maple leaf?
It's an oak leaf.
Oh, it is an oak leaf. Okay, I thought a Canadian would be a maple leaf. Why did you decide on books like these? When and why did you decide on this way of putting books together?
Well, I grew up in the Gatineau, and I was always impressed with the abundance of natural beauty there, and I really wanted to share my impressions and observations about nature with children, because I was young when I got turned on to nature, and I think that's the time to interest people in nature, is when they are young. I started writing poetry about nature when I was more or less 21, which was quite a while ago, and have continued to do so.
Yeah, now this is a second reincarnation of these books, right? Initially you did them in wood?
That's correct. Because I wanted to make poetry exciting and fun for children, and to really emulate the poem through something physical, I created a forest I created leaves, books made out of wood, I created a butterfly, snowflakes, all out of wood. But unfortunately, there were so many demands for these wooden books, and they were all done by hand. They were electrosetted by hand and illustrated by hand. I realized I had to find a publisher. I still wanted to keep the shapes, of course, but I knew that the material had to change. So my publisher chose coated.
Just because of cost?
Yes, because of cost. Yeah. And also, they're very heavy when they're in wood. In coated board, they're very light, and they're easy to pack, and they're easy to read.
How do the books help sensitize children, first of all, to nature?
Because,
I mean, other than just the shapes.
Okay, well, the shape is a big part of it.
Yeah.
The child sees a tree and says, hey, I've got a tree in my room. This is really neat, and I don't even have to go outside. Then the child becomes interested in the message. When they see there's actually printed word on the book, they want to know what it's about. Because it's very colorful, and it is in 3 dimensions, and it's fun to read, it's fun to hold, it's sort of a tactile experience, I'm more or less inviting them into the poetry experience in a non-threatening way. And the poetry is very simple. It's not pedantic. It's not outside of their own experience. After all, the first thing a child sees when he leaves the home is nature. And the thing that he discovers as he gets older is the fact that in Canada there are 4 seasons. And yet very little is written about this in a poetical, rhythmic, musical way.
And it's not just your basic square or rectangular book.
It certainly isn't.
Now, preschoolers and poetry, when do they start grasping the idea or the concept of poetry? How early are we talking about? I'm just wondering personally, because I have a 3-year-old. Oh, she's not even 3 yet. Is this...
I think children have an innate sense of rhythm and musicality. You can see that when you take your child, for instance, to a concert and there's a band playing. Suddenly, if he's old enough to walk or she's old enough to walk, they start marching away on the grass. They have this sense of rhythm that can be developed, and poetry is a perfect medium for this sense of rhythm and musicality to be developed. That's why I think that more young people should be reading poetry.
Now, your summer poetry, the book is a bit confusing, or it confused me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You describe the city as, dare I say, a hard place?
Yes.
Let's read a little of it. Into the forest I wanted to go, then a bird told me no. The forest green, her trees aglow. This, Sally dear, you'll never know. The house, the car, the store are yours, and do not try to find some door that you can open to explore. My home is bright, soft, and sweet. Yours is hard, firm, the street.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a young child growing up, I felt those things. I felt nature was always a trusty friend, and it was something that was gentle and constant. Whereas when I went into the city, or growing up in the city, everything was always changing, and there was a lot of noise, and there was a lot of movement.
Threatening? Threatening,
almost, I suppose so, or very unpredictable. I think nature is a safe place for children, and there's quite a difference between the city and the forest. And many children are drawn to nature, and this book is about warning them about that.
Okay, without making them timid about the environment they live in.
That's correct, and also the book explores the relationship between the forest and the city, and where does a little child fit into this?
Now, the fall book tells us about a little girl, right? Because the leaves are falling.
That's correct. This little girl feels very sorry for the leaves because they've fallen off the trees, and she thinks that it hurts them when people walk at them and people rake up the leaves. So she decides she's going to take out some glue and try and glue them back on the leaves. And there's a little character that comes to life called Hobbly Gobbly, and he explains to her the meaning of fall and why indeed the leaves have to stay where they are. I should say that in each one of these books, the 4 books, there is an underlying message about why the seasons are and what is the relationship with the child to nature and nature to the child.
Let's talk finally about the winter one, because that is so important to Canadians. What about the winter one?
The winter
An evergreen?
No, the winter one is a snowflake.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
And it is perhaps the most abstract and subtle. It really is an observation about, yes, I must say, the Canadian winter. When it snows, very often the sky and the earth join as one because it's covered in a blanket of white. And this little girl realizes that suddenly she can't see any sun. And that's the simple observation. The book opens as a puzzle, and her expression and her thoughts about winter are puzzling to herself as well. So I tried to physicalize the message.
Okay, now that may be for kids a little bit older, or would a 3 or 4-year-old be able to grasp that?
I think I have used these books in the classroom, doing creative drama with them, acting out the message in each of the books, and I was surprised to see how I must learn never to underestimate the intelligence of a child. The pre-Ks understood what every book was about, and when I read it to them, they were able to act out the message without me having to repeat really one part of the book. So they seem to understand the main idea behind the books, and there are no difficult words in these books. There are no words that would cause a lot of confusion where the child has to go to the dictionary to understand the whole meaning of the poem.
So this, along with I Understand Music, you've been using as a great teaching tool for kids.
Yes, I also use the books in a literacy program for adults because the poetry is rhythmic and musical. People that are new to Canada, I introduce these books. There's some grammar points in them, and also many foreigners do not realize that there are 4 seasons in Canada.
I know one of them all too well. I think we do. Nancy, thanks a lot for coming in today.
Well, thank you.
I've been talking to Nancy Snipper. She is a teacher, an actress, and a poet. House of Seasons, a poetry book for preschoolers, is available at the following bookstores. It's available at Paragraph on Mansfield, the Double Hook on Green Avenue, and the Book Center on Queen Mary Road. It's 20.5 minutes after 4 o'clock, and it sells for $19.95. Nancy got a plug in too. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon.